right, so for, problem 1 is simplifying a rational expression. And we want to know what is the simplified form of the expression. And we also want to state any excluded values. Now remember from the intro, the excluded values are when whatever values of a or d or whatever variable you have, whatever values for your variable that will make the denominator equal to 0. Okay? So the first thing we want to do is we want to find our excluded values. Okay? So for our excluded values for problem A, we want to see what values, when is 7a cubed going to be equal to 0? When is 7a cubed going to be equal to 0? So if I divide by 7 on both sides, we get a cubed is equal to 0. So this means that if a is ever equal to 0, because 0 times 0 is 0, if a is equal to 0, then we have an undefined denominator, or undefined fraction. So a cannot be equal to 0 and have a simplified rational expression. So now we're going to, with this being our excluded value, let's write this. This is our excluded value. Now we can go ahead and simplify our expression. So 21a squared over 7a cubed. Now remember from our laws of exponents, when we are dividing powers, we need to subtract the exponent. Okay? So when we do this, let's see. First we can simplify our constant, so that's 21 divided by 7, that's 3. And then we have a to the 2 minus 3, which is a to the negative 1. And again, remember, we cannot have a negative exponent. So when we have a negative exponent, that just needs to come down to the denominator. And remember, that negative exponent is only connected to the variable. It's not connected to the 3, so the 3 stays in the numerator. So this is going to be 3 over a, and there's your final answer. All right, let's take a look at B. Okay, now B, what's here? We want to find our excluded values again. And the way we do that is we're going to set our denominator equal to 0. Okay, so we have 4d plus 8 is equal to 0. And then we just solve for d. So if we subtract 8 on both sides, and this is just your everyday normal inverse operations, we get 4d is equal to negative 8. Then we can divide by 4. Oops. Divide by 4 on both sides. So d is equal to negative 2. And so d cannot be equal to negative 2. If d is equal to negative 2, then we have an undefined fraction. See, 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. And then negative 8 plus 8 equals 0. So that cannot happen. So d has to not equal to negative 2. So now we can simplify our expression. So we have 18d squared all over 4d plus 8. Okay? And when you look at this, you can say, look at that, I got a 4 and an 8 here. So I can go ahead and factor out a 4. I can factor out a 4 out of my denominator. So when I do that, we're going to end up with 18d squared all over, okay, remember when we're factoring out, when we factor out that 4 goes on the outside of the parentheses, and then whatever is left goes inside the parentheses. So that those 4's cancel, and we end up with d plus 2. And now you can see that you can simplify the 18 and the 4. Okay, so now you can simplify the 18 and the 4. So here we've got, let's divide by 2. Okay, so 18 divided by 2 is 9. And then we have d squared all over 2 times the quantity of d plus 2. Okay, now I know some of you are going to say, well, can I simplify it as d squared and this d? Well, no, you can't, because there's an addition in here. You can only simplify in your fraction if everything is multiplication, just like we did up here. Everything is multiplication, so you can simplify those fractions. Because you have this addition in here, this is your final answer. Okay? All right, now this is getting into some stuff that we've been doing in the recent past, okay? So here we have 2n minus 3 over 6n minus 9, okay? Now when we factor, um, let's see. Well, before we factor, we want to find our excluded values, right? So our excluded values, we're going to set the denominator equal to 0, okay? So this is going to be 6n minus 9 equals 0. Whatever n is equal to, that's what it cannot be equal to, okay? So we're going to add 9 on both sides, and we end up with 6n is equal to 9, and then we'll divide by 6, and if you'll notice here, you're not going to get a perfect whole number or integer here, but you're going to go ahead and leave it as an improper fraction. So this will simplify to 3 halves. So n cannot be equal to 3 halves, and that is your excluded value, okay? And let me just show you real quick. Sorry guys, I'm getting sick. So here, if I have 6n, so 6 times 3 halves minus 9, you can see here that the 2 simplifies to 1, the 6 simplifies to 3. So this is going to be 9 minus 9, that equals 0. And that proves to us that the 3 halves we got there was the correct answer. Okay? So let me get that out of the way. And then let's go ahead and simplify our rational expression. So here we have 2n minus 3 over 6n minus 9. Okay, and again, if you look at this denominator, you can see 6 and 9, we can simplify a 3 out of there. So let's see, we've got 2n minus 3 up there, and then when I factor out a 3, I'm going to end up with 2n minus 3. Oh, look at this. I've got this whole thing up there. I've got this whole thing down there. What can I do? Well, those can cancel out. Well, I know you're saying, Mrs. Hart, I thought you said that if there's a subtraction in there or an addition, you can't simplify it. Well, if you have it in a parentheses and you're canceling out the entire parentheses, you are able to do that. So that's what this is. So when you cancel these out, they actually cancel out to ones, correct? Okay. So here what's left in the numerator is 1, and what's left in the denominator is 3 times 1, which is 3. And there's your final answer. See how nice it works out? I love it. All right, now let's take a look at letter D. Now letter D is a little more challenging. Again, we still want to figure out what our excluded values are. So here we're going to set the denominator equal to 0. So 2c squared plus 7 is equal to 0. Okay? This one looks kooky. I think we might want to do this a little differently. Let's go ahead before we... No, let's continue. All right, so subtract 7 on both sides. So we end up with 2c squared is equal to negative 7, then we're going to divide by 2, and we end up with c squared is equal to negative 7 halves. Now remember, the inverse of the square is a square root, right? So if I take the square root here, that's going to give me c. But if I take the square root of that, can I get a number? Can I get a number here? Well, no, you can't, because nothing times itself will give you a negative 7 halves. Okay, so we got to do something different here. Okay, so let's erase this. Well, let me just put a big X on it, so we know that that's what we tried. Okay, so first then, I want to go ahead and try simplifying my expression first, and then find my excluded value. And yeah, you can do it that way too. You can find your excluded values at the end. All right, so let's see. We've got 26c cubed plus 91c all over 2c squared plus 7. Okay? So still, let's factor out a c. There's a c. Can we do 13? Let's see. 91. Oops, I turn off the smart ink here. Turn that off. Back here. So 91 divided by 13 equals, ooh, that works. So we can go ahead and factor out a 13c, right? Well, yeah, let's factor out a 13c. All right, so we're going to factor out a 13c there, and what we're left with is 2c squared plus 7 all over 2c squared plus 7. So here we can cancel those out, okay? And we end up with 13c. There you go.